been looking at CISA, which is the US government's cybersecurity and infrastructure security agency, part of the Department of Homeland Security, who's given a warning to businesses not to use passwords.
This is kind of, you do need to use passwords, but not only passwords. This isn't Davey Winder's continued war against the password, right? This is, don't actually have a password, right?
It's precisely that. It is my war against passwords. No, to be fair, what CISA have said isn't that you shouldn't use passwords, it's that you shouldn't rely on passwords alone. They have a bad practices list, which is the security things you really, really shouldn't do as a business because they're dangerous to your business. And they've just added to that you shouldn't use single-factor authentication. What they're talking about is passwords. You shouldn't use a password on its own. Instead, you should be using multi-factor authentication. As we've often said, multi-factor all the things. And there's good reason for this, because by using multi-factor authentication, Google did a survey, some research recently, and they found that using MFA blocked 100% of automated bot attacks, 99% of bulk phishing attacks, and rather amazingly, 66% of highly targeted attacks against Google accounts. So those are some pretty big numbers.
Yeah, that's a really big deal, isn't it? And just to explain to people what multi-factor authentication is as well, that's something in addition to a password, which can be something physical, such as a security key. It could be a biometric, such as Face ID or Touch ID, and it could be an authenticator app, as well as a text or an email. But the last two aren't as good, are they?
Well, when you're looking at multi-factor authentication, you need to look at the factors, and there are 5 factors involved. So you can authenticate something through knowledge, which is what you know, possession, what you have, inherence, which is what you are, location, where you are, and behavior, what you do. 2-factor authentication usually uses knowledge, username and password, and possession, hardware, key, a one-time code, etc., or a smart card. But if you access a secondary factor via your smartphone, you get a two for one, because whatever you're accessing there, so say it's a code, you can, or one-time code, you can also add inherence in, because it's using facial or fingerprint recognition to access the device in the first place. So that's a good example of multi-factor authentication in practice.
I mean, the stats are really interesting. Microsoft have done a ton of stuff on 2FA or MFA as well, and they look at just the 365 stuff, particularly in the enterprise world, and it's staggering, you know, that, and we all talk about the nuances and the niches, but actually 99% of pretty much everything just gets resolved if you just put in something other than a name and password, which clearly almost all of our names and passwords are in some breach or other. They're often reused, you know, or variants of those are reused. It just, you know, it couldn't be more the #1 piece of advice that we offer on STC. Just please set up 2-factor authentication on all your common apps and platforms.
Yeah, and I'll just finish off by saying that this bad practice list that single-factor authentication has now been added to by CISA. That was only the 3rd item on it, and the other 2 are: don't use end-of-life or unsupported software, and don't use known, fixed, or default passwords.